This is AJ.
I'm Heidi.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we're the
Schmidt Family.
Go really inside.
Alright guys, welcome back to Jen and...
This is weird.
We're in the wrong spots. Hang on. That's better. Welcome back.
Is it though?
One more time. Alright, so welcome. Thank you. Alright guys, welcome back to Jen and George TV presents Positive Impact. In today's episode, we go back to RISE and we visit with a family, the Schmidt family.
The Schmidt family story is amazing, so we had to break it up into two parts. Part one is going to be about the family's adoption of AJ and Mimi.
They'll talk in detail about the adoption process, especially since they adopted internationally. I thought that was very interesting. And they'll talk about their children's special needs. It's an incredible story, and with that said, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get ready for some positive impact!
I think it's necessary to continue therapy because, like I said before, if AJ stops therapy, the drooling is going to increase. That's one of the biggest things. But more importantly, AJ's got cerebral palsy, and it helps balance him, and it helps him walk better. So we take that for granted as people that just walk normally. But for him, the horse actually helps him walk. And it's quite incredible that, riding a horse helps him walk. To me, that's incredible. But it's a true statement.
So we have two children. Our oldest is AJ. He is 13 years old. Full name is Alejandro. He was born in Guatemala, and we adopted him at age 13 months. And our daughter was also internationally adopted. Her name is Mimi. Her full name is Maria. She's 8 years old, and we've had her since she was 3.5. Well, we experienced infertility, and very short, it wasn't very long after experiencing that, we met with some of Jeremy's family and who had also adopted internationally, and were very inspired to also pursue international adoption. We initially chose Guatemala because it was a very short trip. We're originally from Wisconsin, and if anyone is familiar with adoption, the younger they come home, typically, the better their transition is. That is how we ended up, pursuing AJ.
So I initially adopted AJ, yeah.
And Mimi's story is a little bit different. So AJ's was pretty straightforward.
Okay.
His process was actually rather quick. It took about a year. We visited him twice. The case wasn't moving quite as fast as we had hoped, and there was starting to be a little bit of political tension. And it was pretty clear he wasn't going to be home by his first birthday, so we ended up making a second trip to visit him. Okay, so when we brought AJ home, things on the pickup trip went south really quick.
Yeah.
And some shady things happened. We didn't quite know what was going on, but you just knew something was going on. And they sort of did like a drive-by baby. They brought him to the hotel, gave him to us, and left. And it just wasn't this magical moment that you imagine that moment to be in your head.
It was almost like they wanted to get rid of him. That it was like, here you go, I'm out of here.
And we had asked all the questions, and all of the questions we had asked had been answered. He was very small for his age, and we knew he was premature. You have to be open to several things when you adopted from Guatemala. Low birth weight, no prenatal care, prematurity. So every question we had, they just carry him because he's a preemie. But once we had him at pickup, we realized he can't tripod. He's still not eating solid foods. He's still so tiny. And all these questions just started rolling. He got very sick on the plane on the ride home, which was terrifying. And we sort of got off the plane and ran to urgent care. That was sort of our first. We just literally got thrown into this parenting, and I never say that something was wrong, but something was up, and I think we knew right away. So we had a PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy evaluations, and I remember that, and they said, well, he's at a newborn level, and I just went, what? And I remember the physical therapist saying to me, it might be a good idea to go see a neurologist. It sort of sent us down this wormhole. So a lot of people just assume that we knew AJ had special needs, and we did not. So he came home at 13 months, and then we started pushing real hard for answers. And when he was 18 months old, he was diagnosed completely deaf. He wears cochlear implants. We had that surgery when he was 3 and 4.
Yeah.
The same day that my dad died from cancer, AJ was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So things were pretty dark for a long time.
Yep.
When he was 4, he was diagnosed with epilepsy. And then when we moved here, when he turned 11, he was finally diagnosed with autism. So we have all those things going on. He's also still nonverbal. So we don't have a reason for that. AJ is just AJ. So it's been an interesting road. I mean, they said they didn't know if he was going to walk, talk, move, anything. And that physical therapist I mentioned was fantastic and said he's going to walk without any assistance. And so that's where we started with addressing the CP, and then I think it went to the hearing loss, and then the autism, as things progress. So he's not just a straight shot kid that has one thing going on. We've got a lot going on. We initially were going to adopt again from Guatemala. And then when AJ came home with significant needs, all of our focus and energy went into him. So we didn't pursue adoption for quite a few years. And then there was one night about, 5 years ago. And I said to Jeremy, I feel like we should be adopting again. And your answer was?
No way. I felt that AJ just had a lot of needs, and he needed both of us, and I didn't see that we could possibly adopt another child with the amount of needs that AJ had.
We were at a crossroads, I think. And I thought, well, I'm just going to give it up. Whatever our family's supposed to be, it's supposed to be. And the next morning he rolled over and said, I think we should adopt again. We had some roadblocks.
The roadblocks were roughly about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with a condition called multiple sclerosis. So there's only so many countries that allow you to adopt when you have multiple sclerosis. And one of those countries happened to be Bulgaria.
For Mimi's referral, we had just started the process with our social worker, and she called me about 2 weeks later, and she started telling me about this little girl. And I thought, I don't know what's happening right now.
Right.
But she was actually giving us a referral. It was a little girl in Bulgaria who was 2.5, and all we knew was that she had vision loss. Definitely no vision in one eye. They weren't quite sure how much in the other.
Now, mind you, referrals back then, you're talking 6 months. So the fact that we got 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden she's getting, and she's frantically writing this down on a whiteboard, and I'm like,
He
what
thought
are
I was
you
crazy.
doing? And basically it came down to her telling me, look, she's got vision loss, but what if she's blind? And I said, what if she is? And it was just that simple. At that point, we decided that, okay, we're gonna go through with this. And if she's blind, we'll make it work.
And this was a very unique situation. They had a week to find her a family to commit, or she was gonna go back in the bottom of the pile. But it was just a very unique experience.
It was,
and we started from zero. We had no adoption fund per se, but we just felt so passionate that this was supposed to be our daughter. But the manner in which she came home was pretty incredible. We did a lot of fundraising, and she was well loved before she even was here.
From Chicago to Sofia, Bulgaria was 13 hours. I mean, that in itself was a very long, process. But to see another country is really cool. And, we joke that we've been to multiple different countries, but most of them revolve around our kids, so.
Yeah. And where AJ was right in Guatemala City, Mimi was in an orphanage that was about 3 hours from the capital city. So it was just driving through fields and just getting a really cool, be able to take in the landscape was really neat. You're required for Bulgaria to visit for a week. So we would go to the orphanage for a few hours per day, spend time with her, leave, and then maybe they would let us come back in the afternoon. And we met this little girl, and she was a spitfire. She had so much personality, and she was running around, and we thought, okay, if she was going to have vision loss, that typically kids with vision loss move very slowly, cautiously, but perhaps one of the biggest blessings out of her very rough start in life is that they did not make accommodations for her. So she learned how to functionally use the vision that she has very, very well.
So that week trip, after that week, it's so difficult to leave. I mean, you don't want to leave. If you could stay there, you would. I mean, you want to be able to bring home your child, but you can't. So, I mean, that visit trip is extremely difficult to do, so.
When we visited AJ, the first time they only allowed us to have him for 24 hours. Yeah. So we were able to bring him to the hotel with us for 24 hours, and then we had to take him back, and I literally thought somebody was ripping out my soul. Like, it was so bad just leaving him there. And when we left Mimi after visiting, I thought, well, let's just ask if we can Skype. Let's just ask. They can always say no. So we would get up every Friday morning at 1 a.m. From the time we visited to the time we picked her up, and the psychologist would have her sit in the office, and we would Skype. And there was a huge language barrier, but she got to see us. We got to see her, what she was doing, and I think it was really beneficial.
Yeah.
She has a condition called coloboma. So it's a congenital malformation of the eye. She also has microphthalmia, so her eyes are smaller than normal, especially the left eye is much smaller. Basically, she has a blob in both of her eyes. And the blob in the left eye is so big it covers the red. She can't see out of there because it's covering. But the blob in the right eye is shaped like a pear, which is why she has some vision in that eye. It is permanent. It will never change.
And it cannot be surgically fixed. So I got that question all the time. Well, she's in the U.S. now. Can't we surgically fix it? And I'm like, no, this is not something you can surgically fix. So.
And she's just blown away every single vision specialist she's had, because the things that she does, she's not supposed to be doing.
Right.
So both of our kids are that way. They're both doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Amazing.
They are.
They are amazing.
They are amazing.
Yeah, they are amazing.
She's a little bit behind socially and emotionally, and she does have complex adoption trauma.
Yeah.
I think that is what has floored us the most on her journey and been difficult for our family, is walking that.
Trauma's new for us. We haven't experienced that. We didn't experience it with AJ, obviously, because he's got all these other needs. We can't see that he's truly had trauma.
Right.
But with Mimi, it's clear to see that she definitely has trauma. A lot of the behaviors, they are very similar to autism. They're very similar to obsessive compulsive disorder. They're very similar to ADHD. They're these common terms that you hear out there, which in my opinion, she doesn't have any of that. She just has this trauma that she has to work through. And, together as a family, we have to work through it.
A lot of people think that kids don't remember. And we will be the first to tell you, the body remembers. They do remember. It may not come out verbally, and there's all sorts of, research behind that, but we've done our best to learn as much as we can. And one of the biggest blessings being in Texas is obviously RISE. So that's been very helpful for her. And that's talking about regulating her emotions and understanding her emotions. She's at an age now where she has a bit of flashbacks. So school is a difficult environment because school mimics orphanage life. You have a big group of kids. You have one teacher, aka caregiver, with all the kids. They do everything together. We go to lunch, we eat, go to PE together. It's similar.
Yeah.
And we never thought about that before.
I know.
Yeah.
Like you guys saying that to me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
That's an environmental trigger for her. It's very difficult for her to be in large groups of kids. For a long time, kids were a threat. She often lives in fight or flight all the time because she spent 3.5 years living like that.
Right.
I mean, she was in one of the better orphanages, but group care is still group care. And some people say that kids are resilient. I'm going to challenge that and say our kids are fighters, and that they still have to process, she's still going to have to process all the things that happened to her early on in life. And now that she's older, we're starting to get the questions, why am I from Bulgaria? How did I get here? We're walking through all of that with her because she didn't have a lot of the experiences that, typical kids have with moms and dads.
To be continued. Dun dun dun!
As you saw, the Schmidt family had an amazing adoption journey. Part 2 will feature how RISE has been helping AJ and Mimi meet their needs.
Part 2 will also let us know how we can help RISE help families like the Schmidt family. With that said, if you like the video, please hit the like button, and we'll help it reach anybody that may benefit from listening to these stories.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for our past videos and our future videos, because we know you'll like them.
And remember, we'll see you next week, Tuesday, for the second part of the Schmidt family. And with that said, remember, the best way to make a positive impact is to dare to be you, dare to be weird. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh.